intro introduce. Hello, this is Ed. I'm in San Diego, and welcome to Global TV talk show, as you can see. So we have with us in Kobe, Japan, Amiko from All Japan Relocation. She's the CEO. And from Orange County, southern part of LA, is Christian Ternedin, and he's between companies now. But you were a senior manager with Sterling Lexicon Relocation
Correct.
for a
Yeah.
long time.
And
Yeah.
Carter's before that.
Yeah. Okay. So Miko and I have known each other a couple of years. She's been on a couple of our shows in the past, and she's the CEO of All Japan Relocation. We're going to let Read AI take notes. Okay. Stand by. Sorry. I've got to push the right buttons here. Okay. And Read is coming in too. Okay. Okay, I'm sorry for the interruption. Okay, so Miko, as CEO of All Japan Relocation, you get involved in all things taking care of customers from everywhere.
Yeah, well, everywhere, but in Japan, we are doing the inbound at the moment, not outbound yet, but we are, all cover whole Japan. So yeah, it's very nice to connect and meeting with new people and new locations. Yes.
Yes, that's great. Okay, we're joined now by our cast of characters. We have with us in Phoenix a good friend, Stephen Howard. Wave, okay, and this is Amiko in Kobe, Japan. And Philip Berry, you've already met. Christian, you've already met. And this is Dr. Ken Lloyd, who's from LA also. And he's been on our program a long time. And also, good to see you, Paul Falcone, also in LA. And you're just back from a big trip somewhere, right, Paul?
Yeah, I was in Texas, Ed. I was doing a presentation in Texas, and I'm just back, just in time for this. So
yeah, this is great. Well, you look terrific and well rested from all that plane travel.
yes, it'll do it, especially with the big delays because of the weather we're having on the East Coast. But thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you for showing up. So, Paul, what is your APAC experience, if I may ask?
Oh, when I was heading up international human resources at Paramount Pictures, Ed, we had operations in Japan and in South Korea. So to that extent, I'd done work with organizations in Asia.
Okay, great. Just to reiterate for the sake of our international audience, very honored to have Amiko on. This is the third or fourth time, I believe, in the past 2 or 3 years. And she is the CEO of All Japan Relocation Corporation, and they're part of a larger company that handles real estate and leasing and furniture and other things. But I remember when we first met, you told me, Amiko, that you just specialize in taking care, hands-on care of every single person that you touch.
Yes, that's correct. Yes, that's it's a very my love part, the meet with people and customer, right. I love that time very much.
Yeah, this is great. Okay, so Amigo, just relax with us and share ideas. I know you're a bit nervous about all of us looking at you on camera here.
See, so everybody's so professional. It's so, I'm gonna be so shy, but it's
and we're looking at Stephen, really, Ed, when
it's, I was so wondering, it is so nice and so kind and invite me, but it's look at always, it's so professional people and, it's so scared me, but this is a good opportunity to learn from the older people, what such as professional people. So that's, I decided, it's, yeah, fine. I wanted to attend this, meeting because it's such a great people.
No, thank you. I wait till Michael comes on. He's really a terrific guest, very knowledgeable. Okay, so Dr. Ken Lloyd is, as I mentioned, in LA, San Fernando Valley, right near the Hollywood studios. And you have some background in dealing with TV and Hollywood. You've been on many TV shows as a guest. You've been a writer for many years, an advice column that published in all over the U.S. Ken, why don't you do a better job than me explaining in detail some of the columns that you have had over the years?
You're doing such a nice job. I enjoy listening, Ed.
You're kind.
Sounds great. Yeah, for 20 years, I had a workplace advice column, and people would write in about people at work, issues that they were dealing with, and it covered the full spectrum and how to deal with any kind of people problems that would arise at work. And it was in a lot of papers, as Ed mentioned. It was syndicated for around 10 years by the New York Times Syndicate. So it was really a great joy to write it. I love seeing the kinds of questions and issues that people would face, and more importantly, to try to provide them with some insights on how to deal with them, whether it was in terms of harassment or bullying or people nonstop talking, which I don't want to do in answering this question. All sorts of stereotypes that come in, questionable managerial practices, people are not being treated with respect and trust, or what do I do? I'm going to be getting a new manager and everyone's told me this person is impossible. How do I deal with that? Just the full range of questions that you could imagine coming from employees across the US seeking help and advice. And I just kind of felt like I was sort of everyone's HR rep for a lot of them. Come on in, let's talk, let's see if we can get some strategies to resolve it. And I certainly enjoyed the process of doing that. Always enjoyed writing. It's just always been an interest for me. It's always been a hobby. So I'm always writing something, and I have fun with it. Sometimes it sells, sometimes it doesn't. But I do like to engage in the process and try to come up with new and different ideas and ways to approach work and life and the work life.
Oh, that's
it's been
terrific.
nice to meet you, Emiko.
Yes.
Nice to meet you.
So, Emiko, why don't you self-explain about All Japan and All Japan relocation and all the different services that the company is involved with that you, as CEO, you oversee?
Okay. Okay, then let me introduce myself. I'm Emiko from All Japan Relocation. We are a destination service provider in Japan. We provide service, a one-stop solution of relocation service for expats in Japan. We are not doing outbound yet, but we soon we are aiming for that. And our office is in Tokyo, Kobe, and down south in Kumamoto. So we covered all over Japan. So by the way, I'm invested in Kobe. I hope you know Kobe about it. We are very flexible and experienced and expertise and friendly. And we can also provide automate services. And this year,
please, may I interrupt for a second?
Yes.
Michael is having a problem connecting. Can I ask for a volunteer to send him? I'll give you the email he's requesting. That we send him the link, the Zoom link. Can anybody help me with that? I cannot do this and that at the same time.
Yeah, Ed, I'll do it. What's the email?
Thank you, Marianne. Okay, it's the letter OZCLOT.
OZCLOT?
At yahoo.com.
At yahoo.com. And what's the dude's name?
Michael Piker.
Michael.
Oh,
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And just say on my behalf, you're communicating.
Yeah. I got it.
All right, thank you.
I'll be back.
And then I'll introduce you formally. Okay, this is Marianne in San Francisco. She'll be right back.
I'll be back.
Okay, thank you. Emiko, please continue.
Oh, okay. She's such a nice lady.
Oh, yes, indeed.
Yeah, we are so, well, where was I?
Well,
Okay.
you were talking about all the different things that you do.
Okay, then this year has been an amazing year for me. Because we had a hard time in COVID, and we are such a not big company. So then it's COVID came. Japan, it's so strict, the restrictions. So we don't have any customers. But meanwhile, we try to correct all the RMCs, global relocation company. Then we received, we tried as much as we could, and we could get on board each RMCs a lot. It's amazing. Then this year we received lots of awards and nominations from RMC and achieved great success. Yes, thank you. But then before the COVID, I always clap the hand. Someone gets a show award. But then during the COVID, it's online. So even we got the award, it's, it's all the online. But this time, in this month, in December, in Washington, D.C., exactly same time you are having the 22nd for the lunchtime, we are going to get the award for it's only one DSP in the whole world, and we got one. So we are so excited. This is the first time we're gonna go get it.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Yeah,
That's a big
yeah,
deal.
congratulations. And so the RMC is Altair, correct?
Yes, that's right. Yes.
Right.
It's
That's
all
cool.
with
Very,
menu.
very good. Okay,
Yeah.
I want to introduce Paul Falcone. He and I have known each other a long time, across companies, across years, locations. Paul, you just came back from Austin, South by Southwest. You were a speaker. What did you talk about?
It was Austin, Ed, you're right, but it was the SHRM Executive Network annual conference. So it wasn't South by Southwest, although I think that was happening there or close by at the same time. So yeah, that's what the presentation was for.
Yeah. What did you talk about?
Leading through crisis and disruption, which reflects one of my new books, but it's that same idea. I think everyone's struggling with how do we keep up with all the change that's going on. It's much more complex and it comes much more quickly. So that was the focus of my talk.
Okay, so Paul's background is a lot to do with the entertainment industry. Paramount, Nickelodeon, what else?
NBC Universal and Time Warner.
Well, that's enough. Yes. But and I remember you telling me at one time that your purview was people behind the camera, not in front of the camera.
Yeah, pretty much, Ed. That's usually going to be the case. When you're in human resources, you deal with the below the line people is what they call it, as opposed to the actors and the actresses. They usually do things through their agents, and that's done differently. That doesn't come through HR.
Right. And now you also had some more recent experience in the healthcare side of the entertainment industry, isn't that right?
Yeah, earlier in my career, I worked at City of Hope, which is a wonderful cancer research hospital.
In LA.
But
yep.
But in the last 5 years, I was the head of human resources for the Motion Picture and Television Fund, which is basically the retirement home for the actors and the actresses and the folks who work behind the camera. So that's really considered a healthcare nonprofit because it's in the medical space and has to do with, as you'd imagine, independent and assisted living, long-term care, skilled nursing, behavioral psych, those kinds of things, memory care, those types of things.
So Stephen Howard, excuse me, I was thinking of an old wartime buddy I had. Did you have any experience with your family in the motion picture healthcare situation?
Yeah. My stepmother was a patient at City of Hope, and she took great care of her in her last few years. So my dad used to go down there from Palm Springs, take her down, I think once a month for chemo treatment. And I think they almost named one of the embassy suite rooms after them. They were there so often.
That's great. Thank you. Michael Piker, welcome, my friend.
Hello. Sorry, little tech problems.
No, that's all right. We see you. Although the screen, you have your iPhone screen on narrow, but we see you clearly. And there's a lot of ceiling that we see, but the lighting is good.
What's the last name on? It's hard for me to see. I can't see Michael's.
Piker.
Piker. PIKER.
Oh, okay, good. All right, good.
Okay, so let me jump in and make introductions here, and then we'll begin, and we'll pick up with Amico and everybody else. So Michael Piker and I have known each other a long time. He's originally from New York. He's been living around the world many times. In fact, you mentioned that you lived in Tokyo, Japan area 30 years ago, and now you're doing it again. So
Mhm.
Exactly.
coming home.
Yeah, it's full circle coming home. Yeah.
Good. So I want you to meet Amiko, who's on the screen on my upper left here, and she's in Kobe, Japan, and she happens to be the CEO of All Japan Relocation. I had mentioned that to you several months
Yeah.
ago. And Michael, what are you doing with Shizeto? You're in a very senior role, I know, and involved with rewards, but also other things.
Yeah, so I'm the VP of Total Reward, which includes a broad-based reward and mobility and lots of other things. So yeah, I've been doing this a long time, as you know.
Yes, and you're a leader, a thought leader for sure. Meet Philip Berry, who's another good friend from the past. Philip was, when I first met him, based in Paris with Colgate Palmolive, in charge of the world, or was that just Europe?
Well,
Just.
at that particular time, it was Europe, but I was vice president of HR for every one of the different divisions. Latin
Yeah,
America at another time, I had all of Eastern Europe, Russia, the Middle East, and Africa, all of Africa another time. So, yeah.
yeah. I remember one time you told me, Philip, when we were talking about global HR and managing across borders, across time and space, across cultures, that there was some similarities between people from a cultural standpoint, in say Guatemala, Nicaragua, and somewhere in Eastern Europe.
Yeah, Romania.
Oh, that's it. Okay. Now, what was the similarity there?
Well, it's interesting because when the Berlin Wall came down in '89, and so myself and the team of individuals, we were setting up full-fledged operations throughout all of Eastern Europe, and that consisted of, in some cases, greenfield operations or mergers or acquisitions. And so when you do that, what you want to do is to ensure that once you have the organization in place, you want to make sure that from a talent management perspective, you're able to manage it and have people who understand the area that you're going into. So interestingly enough, when you look at the marketplace that was in Romania at that time, it was very similar to Guatemala because of the way the market functions, in terms of availability and location of foods and also from the standpoint of language. I mean, it's Romance language, and Romanian is another Romance language, just like Spanish. And so it was easy. One of the things, those of you who have been involved in moving people from one country to another, the most difficult thing is being able to find people who can not only fit from a personal and a professional standpoint, but from a family standpoint. You want to be able to make sure that the family can feel comfortable and not want to leave after 2 years. And so we were very successful, from that perspective. And when I look at longevity of individuals, we were able to study that we have done over 20 some years that I was over the 60 countries that I was involved in. We found that one of the things that kept individuals from leaving the company, we saw a lot of people. Matter of fact, HSBC did some of the best research on looking at individuals and looking at companies and looking at how they're able to retain their talent. And the difficulty is that when you're moving a person abroad, they learn a lot about the environment, but then if they leave, then you have lost your return on investment. So therefore, what we did with that, in fact, another similarity, I'll just say this briefly, is that when you look at finance, and so with Romania, what was interesting about the environment in Romania in Turkey and Russia and Brazil, is understanding how you function in a hyperinflationary environment. And so you need to have special skills from a management standpoint to manage your money. Cash is king. And so if you don't have, if you have people who just, maybe they just went to Arthur Andersen or one of those firms, the US way of working at things, then they are not a global talent, and you can't utilize them in helping you to manage your monies in other areas around the world. So, and I have numerous other examples that I'll talk about, but I'll do that later.
Thank you so much. So, Stephen, you lived and worked throughout APAC. I know you're in Singapore and Hong Kong, but were you in Tokyo also?
No, I lived in Singapore, but I worked all over the Asia Pacific area, every country except, I guess, Myanmar and Bangladesh, I think were the only, and obviously North Korea were really the only countries that I ever got to. But I've been all over Japan. In fact, Japan's one of my favorite countries. If I could afford to live in Japan, I'd move there tomorrow. But it's just not easy. But I love Japan. But yeah, I've worked all over the region.
So this was when you were a VP marketing with Citibank?
Yeah, it started off with Texas Instruments, and then I was the Time Magazine regional director for Time Magazine, running Brunei in the east to Pakistan in the west. My boss was based in Tokyo, so I often got summoned up to Japan. And then I spent a year doing strategic marketing for Air Lanka, the national airline of Sri Lanka, and then Citibank as the vice president of marketing.
Very cool. Okay, Michael, tell us what relocation was 30 years ago compared to your recent jaunt into Tokyo.
Well, I worked at Yoko ORC and Mercer. Predominantly, Japanese companies were only sending Japanese outbound. So I guess 30 years later, the world has caught up. So there's inter-regional moves into Japan, not just outbound. What's changed dramatically is even when I got to Shiseido, this legacy foreign service premium, hardship premiums, all the accoutrements that are probably way above market in my view, and that's changed dramatically to take those away. That's changed dramatically, and I'm doing that as we speak at Shiseido. And just the whole notion of living in Japan, it's 40 million people, largest metro city in the world, right? Third largest economy. So it went to the bubble Keizai and now has come back, but the yen is very weak. So you've got this dystopian sort of paradox of Japan wanting to be global, but it's still innately Japanese at its core and aspires to be more global. So that's my quick observation.
Yeah, okay. And so are you in a condo or in a high rise?
No, I'm in a temporary place. It takes 4 months, shockingly, to send my goods from London to Tokyo because of the Houthi attacks in the Persian Gulf. So they had to send it south and over. Because if you send your goods through the Middle East, it's likely that your goods will be absconded by the Houthi. So it's not very safe right now.
Exactly right.
That's really quite a story. Yeah, so tell me about Shiseido. It's a big company and famous.
Yeah, 153-year history, one of the most iconic brands in Japan. Fragrance, beauty care, competes with L'Oreal and Estee Lauder. So it's products I use and I can identify with. They're fantastic, innate products to make your life better. And it's like I said, it enriches the world. I've been in some other sectors, as you know, they're a little bit different, gambling and tobacco. So beauty is a lot better sector.
Right. Okay, so let's go back to Amico. I'm sure you're familiar with Shiseido, Amico.
You have to unmute.
Okay. Yes, of course, Shiseido is, everybody knows, it's number one, the beauty care, the brand. Yeah, that's a very good Japanese people are aware of the number one Japanese the makeup and of course skincare and everything. Is so proud of. If I go to abroad and I can see the Shiseido, and still it's feel comfortable. Even I shouldn't say I don't use some of them.
I'm sure you'll look into it now, but so Philip, let's go back to you about dealing with multi-cultures and what do you see happening right now as we look at 25?
Well, yeah, one of the things that's so important now is that there's a fallacy that is spreading, say, in the United States, that the United States can continue to be profitable and productive by just focusing on the US. And history has shown that that's not the case. And in fact, global trends are showing that more and more you have to rely on other countries from a standpoint of even if your raw material, from a standpoint of your goods and your services, your marketing efforts, where you're manufacturing. You look at issues that are happening around the world, there has to be more cooperation built in to the framework of how you are working with other companies and other countries. And if you do, in order to do that, what we need are leaders who are globally focused. So we need global leaders. And in fact, one of the things that I focused on quite a bit as I was building the cadre of leaders within Colgate was to find out what does it take to develop a global leader? What are the values? What are the competencies? What are the skills? What type of assignments should an individual be in? You know, so if a person was going, quote unquote, abroad, it's not just going and getting a nice experience somewhere. What you want to do is to determine what is it that I need to learn in order for me to be productive, not only in my present job, but in jobs that are in the future. You know, and so, and in fact, I tell you, if we do happen, and we probably will, be going globally soon, not beyond the globe, you know, to other moons and other planets, and we're going to have to learn how to operate. We have to learn how to understand what's happening there. We have to understand what's important to people. We have to understand what are the values that drive them to be productive. And so these are the type of competencies and capabilities that we need to have, and we need to continue to fight against those forces that would narrow the mindset. And we need to expand our boundaries so that way we are more understanding, more accepting, you know, of others, and not feeling everybody who has been on this call, you have worked in other countries. And you know, when you do that, that you are not just, you have to walk in the moccasins of others, not go over there as a US citizen. Those who just focus on being, I'm an American, and feeling that, well, I can conquer the world with that mentality, those individuals will come up against a barrier. And to me, those barriers are the derailing attitudes and competencies that keep people from moving forward.
Do you have a slide you can show to go a little bit deeper?
Well, you know what I was thinking about, and just in terms of time, and there are a few people who I think who are on this who have seen my slide, but I was really interested in what Emiko, and taking an example of her work and talk about how a Japanese company, and I could do this now or later, but a Japanese company that I was working with, how they were able to rebrand themselves in order to get my business. And I thought it was very impactful. And I'll just, if you just give me, instead of me going through a slide, let me just briefly tell you what I mean by personal branding, if I might.
Yes.
So yeah, because to me, when you're talking about, like, when people are going from one location to another, people feel that it should never be the endpoint, that they should look at how they can grow, how they can therefore change. And when we talk about developing, everybody has a brand, but they don't always think about it. The brand is made up of how others see you and also how you see yourself. And what we want to do is to understand three basic dimensions: your vision, your values, and your competencies. And so I was working with a wonderful company. I was working with the individual who you may or may not know. Here we go. I was working with a person named Hiroko Watanabe. And Hiroko Watanabe was moving me from New York to Florida. And I did a due diligence with her and also the firm that she had. And the firm that she had was, Iiko Naito. And so, and what we did, I said, bid on this business and tell me how you can do something differently in terms of just moving me somewhere. So they did three things that were amazing when we look at it from a personal branding standpoint. I have, because I was in Europe, I have about maybe 500 bottles of wine, premium wine. And anybody who's here knows that it was easier to move wine from one country to another a few years ago. It's more difficult now. Well, what I wanted to do was I wanted to maintain the wine fixtures. And then I also had a nice wine cellar that I built. And so what I wanted to do, I wanted to move that from Manhattan to Fort Lauderdale. Well, this other company that bid on this business, they said, well, in order for us to do that, we have to hire another truck. It's going to cost you $20,000 just to do that, just to have another truck rather, that will keep the wine and refrigerate it so that they can set it up in Fort Lauderdale. And then in terms of the wine cellar, you're going to have to get a whole nother one. So what happened is that because of the great work of in Japan, where you can take things apart and put things back together. Imiko, with the paper exercise, what is that called again? Do you remember?
Origami?
Yes, thank you. Origami. So what they did, they drew they came into my cellar, they drew an origami of the whole set. And then what they did, they hired a group that was going to drive. They said, well, this could be a 2-day drive. We'll have two workers who will work. One while one is sleeping, the other will be awake. So we don't have to worry about the wine spoiling. And then what they did, they measured all of the wood pieces and the whole architecture of the wine cellar that I had. And then they put it back together when we got into Fort Lauderdale. They put it all together. They brought all of the wine. And in terms of the cost, was it very expensive, more expensive than the other one? It was a little bit more, but this is the thing and that I've learned from Blue Ocean Thinking. With Blue Ocean Thinking, you are not just thinking about cost, you're thinking about value. The value of moving these wines that I could preserve because of their history, because I've been with them for 50 some years. I mean, I have 1970 wines, I have 1930 wines. All of you who are into wine, you know how expensive that is. I would have to replace those. So what they did, they said, we're going to give you this, but we're going to give you more value. That was the brand, the competency. So when you look at three things that companies need to do, as I move to a close on this, when you are trying to develop your own personal brand, that is how you want to be perceived differently, how you want to expand your consumer base, and also how you want to take advantage of new and emerging trends. So this company was able to expand their base in New York to other people who understood the value of this because of their competency in areas that they demonstrated and because of the cultural interface. And the last thing, when all of the people who came to our house and then when they were unpacking every single thing in our cellar and also in the home. They did it with such care. They did it with such feeling. They did it with such a desire to make nothing. There was zero breakage of any of the things. Now, all of you have moved, you know, sometimes there's some breakage and you have to have some insurance around that. There was zero breakage there. And that was the way they were able to enhance their competencies in working with me. And that's why, and the cultural piece, and Stephen especially appreciates this because, you know, as Stephen has been working on how you work with other people in different countries and understand how you can work and interface with them differently based on understanding the cultural nuance, that is what makes you a much more effective and productive person. So that's what I wanted to say. And to me, that is, last thing, that is your superpower. The superpower that everybody is looking for is how can I change and enhance brand? Because everybody has a brand, but you don't want to be the same way that you have been perceived before. You want to be perceived differently, and you want to be perceived because there is new value that you bring, whether you are an individual in a business or whether you are in an assignment. What are you doing to rebrand so that way you can have people understand the superpower that you bring? So that's
Well, thank you, Philip. That was a superpower talk. And this audience out there, now you see that we're unscripted and not rehearsed. So this is the personal brand, and I'll get out of the way so you can see my blue ocean and what we're doing here. So Amico, I hope you found that interesting and relevant. And now I'd like to introduce Marianne from San Francisco. Marianne, say hello. Please.
I'm muted. Hi, everybody. It's a
Oh, hi
beautiful
there.
sunny day in San Francisco for once, but the Giants lost their last game yesterday. What a bummer.
Right. Isn't that interesting? So what are you working on now? And can you talk about your work briefly?
I am working on clearing up identity theft. It's been a nightmare. But aside from that, I work with a U.S. Department of State sponsored program called Tech Women, and it brings women in STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math, from the Middle East, Africa, and South and Central Asia to work in Silicon Valley companies on a 5-week mentorship program. And the women are here now as I speak. And for the first time, so I work as an impact coach, which means I help a specific country team develop a plan of what they're going to do when they go back home after the program. The program has since expanded from the Bay Area to Chicago. And this is only the second year in Chicago, and it doesn't have anywhere near the momentum it does in the Bay Area. So I was asked by leadership if I would mentor somebody in Chicago. So I am doing this all via Zoom. I've never met my team from Zimbabwe, and I probably never will. But it's been a very interesting experience. They're a great and very cohesive team. So I love that there's no infighting, because sometimes there's infighting amongst the members of the team. But so far, so good. But it's just, it's not the same as working with a team in person, as you all know, I'm sure.
So, Michael, what degree of your work is virtual?
Interesting. In Japan, as Amiko knows, it's more face-to-face. So having lived in 9 countries, this is probably the most intensive. Work gets done more truly and still in Tokyo by sitting across from somebody.
Interesting. Yeah. So you are comfortable with that?
Yeah, I mean, you have to. I mean, I haven't used my Japanese in 30 years, so it's improving again. The whole way, Japanese culture and the way you conduct business, the way you exchange business cards, the way you interact through pleasantries first before you get to business. As Americans go straight to business, as you know. So it's a very different didactic in how you extol and do business here. So I had to relearn that in my brain and be cognizant of that culturally.
So is it okay for me to say, of course, I'm the leader here, but is it okay for me? I'm going to ask permission of you, Emiko and Michael, um, to encourage everybody to use the chat and introduce yourselves by way of email, website, LinkedIn, because that will be your ROI from here. Not that it's an invitation to hit on each other, but to exchange information and connect, because I'm sure Michael Emiko can be really helpful to you um, because of her position and the way she wants to help people, which she does so beautifully, which is why you're winning that award. That is the telltale proof. I want to go quickly to Paul Falcone, who has recently been honored with um, publishings and being invited to the board of AMA, American Management Association, and I don't want to say the wrong things, Paul. Why don't you explain briefly what you've been into the past few months?
Yeah, the interesting thing, and I'm going to want Christian's opinion on this too, because I want some European counterbalance to see what's going on out there. But the funny thing, Ed, was I've written for the American Management Association for decades. They published my first book back in the mid 90s. And I'd done my first article with them, my first book with them, my first public presentation at one of their conferences. And so about 6 months ago, they called me up and they said, Paul, we've got an opening on our board. Would you be interested? It's American Management Association International. We'd love to have you on the board. And I said, I've never done formal board work before. They said, don't worry, we'll teach you everything you need to know. So we had the first meeting just about 2 weeks ago, and I was back in New York City for the meeting. Ed, thank you for bringing it up. And it's just fascinating because it is a global enterprise, but training has its challenges these days because so much is coming out on, you hear of Coursera and FutureLearn and these other things that, you may only be paying $50 for a course, or the coursework may be free and you're only paying for the certification. AMA has always been the 800-pound gorilla. It's been the premier training organization in the country, but it's changing out there. The idea of these massive open online courses changes the calculus of their business development. So they're going through their challenges too. So it's an interesting time to be in the business world, is the best way I could put it. If you like challenge and you like excitement and you like a lot of change, now is a good time to be a writer or to be a consultant or to be whatever. But a lot of people don't like it. No one wants change. So for that reason, it's harder sometimes. And
Paul, there's a Chinese proverb that says, may you live in interesting times, which
Yes.
is not necessarily good.
Stephen, I know it's not necessarily a good thing. You're exactly right. I don't know. It's just interesting times. And Ed, don't mind, Christian, tell me you're not based in Europe now, but you're European. Do you see differences too in terms of some of these trends and patterns that we've been talking about on the show?
I think so. I think generally speaking in Europe, there's definitely more face-to-face interaction. When you said that about Japan, Michael, I thought of that too, because also because the distances are shorter. So people are more in the office, and it seems to be more of a, after COVID, everybody's kind of coming back trend. Whereas here, yes, Amazon, everybody's probably heard about that, and Dell have publicly said that that's what they want, but it's still, by and large, I think it's still being negotiated whether it's going to be hybrid, which seems to be still the majority, remote minority, or full office minority also, but might be rising and increasing. I'm interested in it because as a mobility person, I would like to move people. And if everybody goes remote, that's kind of hard. So I'm interested in everybody figuring out what they want so that we can move on after COVID and decide what the mobility needs of the futures will be.
Michael, what do you think? Is mobility going to increase in the new year?
The volumes still go down, but the absolute focus on ROI, as my colleagues have mentioned, is very keenly intently analyzed and deployed in how we choose the right people in the right place at the right time at the right cost, right? But talent mobility has become somewhat more in vogue. And then the link to workforce planning and the link to talent density has increased exponentially. So I think overall the narrative is less volume, but those with more impact. And so what I call insertive mobility, using the right people for the right task and then moving on.
So the short term.
Yeah, to some extent, and the whole notion of mobility itself, my father and I have been involved in this for like 70 years, is just devolved so differently. So the patterns, the costs, where people go, why they go, when they go, just change dramatically.
Yeah, I think that one of the things I think is that we have to approach this whole issue around where people are working, what they're doing, where the work is in a different way than we're doing it. So coming out of this pandemic, so then there was a big move that people had towards saying, well, let's we don't want to work inside the company, and what we want to do is we want to work it from home. But I think that we have to move to a different model to say, where does the work need to take place and where do individuals need to be? And I look at a global model that was very impactful a number of years ago when we were at Colgate and we were looking at how we would manage, say, and I'll just use two divisions here, Eastern Europe, and also parts of Africa. And we said that you don't have to be in every single country, but what you need to do is to think about what your supply chain is and where would people be able to work from more effectively, and also how do you continue to work with your global people and your local people. I mean, to me, it's not like, I know that, okay, if you're working for a company and you're saying, oh, well, we're a global company, and so therefore we have to move global people there. Well, the model that we had is, how can we develop people locally so that we had to look at succession planning and career planning. And so that way you could move other people who are local into some of those higher positions. So this way you don't mess with the family unit that can only stay in a certain country maybe for 3, maybe 5 years. You have to look at the tax issues around all of that, right? I mean, there are a number of ways to work this without one size fitting all. And I happen to think that Amazon is looking at what their business structure is and where they might need to really have people and where people need to be and when do they need to be there. There's a different way to work it. We need to reward people appropriately. We need to pay people appropriately. We need to be able to work out all of those in our benefit packages or in our reward systems. So that way we're taking those type of distinct family issues into account.
Michael?
Touche. That all works when you get it right.
Yeah.
So, Michael, you were just talking before Philip came in to the discussion about the different kinds of talent. Immersive talent was one word, or did I mishear that?
No, spot on. There's the whole notion of talent mobility, and there's 4 talent types or archetypes. So, obviously the executives are the creme de la creme, and then you've got high potentials, emerging talent, and then DIY assignments. So these archetypes have become somewhat more pervasive in patterns. So obviously it's purpose driven, not duration driven, with clear ROI, and then people go successively back or somewhere else, right? And good companies do that at pace. So there's that going on. The whole ecosystem of RMCs and DSPs is consolidating, as you know. There's a whole notion of flattening of salaries. So being a reward guy like I am, I was in China 2 weeks ago, and executive pay is normalized to executive pay levels. So the notion of a cost of living differential, hardship premiums become less important because the world is flattening in terms of pay lines. So there's just all this exponential stuff going on that's obviously impacting how people move.
Let me ask you what could be just an elementary level question, but I'm curious about the relocation of talent and the physical relocation, we'll call it, rather than hybrid or short-term business trips repetitively or across time. On a more typical international assignment, would you, could you assign or hire a mentor or coach to be like glue to that assignee and family to ensure that the assignee employee knows exactly what's expected at what point of the assignment, with like a rest stop along the way for mentoring session, and a check-in on the family to make sure, if there is a family, then they are integrating, assimilating, not being a pain in the ass, okay, are not causing a problem for the assignee to be productive. So a coach, a mentor of the family, as well as
Right.
to ensure an ROI of the darn assignment.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fantastic question. It's been something we've tried to find a solution for probably 70 years, right?
I know. It goes on and on.
Yeah. I mean, the atypical archetype is home country manager looks after host assignee and hopefully they go home. The reality, I've worked in 8 of the largest companies in the world. It doesn't really happen that way. You get forgotten, the ROI is missed. But the sticky glue, I call it, I love the concept. So pre, during, post, or somewhere else, not just job, but family. Are you integrating? And that's what I call the nirvana, if we can get to that. Oil and gas, predominantly Shell's, BPs of the world, have a better stickiness index during, post, and repat. In other industries that are more short-term focused, like tech, where I've worked in, less so. So I see home country managers to some extent, but not during assignment, nor do I see them when they go back or somewhere else. So it tends to be somewhat episodic, but not strategic. And that's a conundrum that the industry has faced for decades and decades.
I want to just tie into that. It's interesting that you say it's a conundrum because for 20 years, I was very successful in helping to move individuals from one place to another, exactly using the model that Ed is talking about. And we were able, you know, and I could actually show how we increased retention, you know, with that. Because, and the reason why is because, unfortunately, like it comes down to one of the things that Stephen and Ali talk about in their book, you know, is really being able to understand the cultural framework. Companies fail because they have an inappropriate cultural and organizational behavior model that manages how they're working with their people and how they're managing with their products and how they are moving forward. And I think that I really feel that there is a way, only because I've been very successful in setting up a very specific model that had, and I call it the talent, like we talk about supply chain, you know, one needs to have a global talent model, talent supply chain model that helps them, and you know, and I've been successful with that, I'll just say, you know, so that way you're able to eliminate those issues. And one of there was a person who was in one of our calls before who said that what's unfortunate, when people are on a global assignment, they put more focus on it's the short term versus long term thing. You know, so the short term is let me get this guy or gal to produce right for me right now, as opposed to thinking about how can we ensure that this is a long-term global management asset, that we are able to get a return on investment, you know, by being able to put this person where we need him or her so that they can move the company forward. There's a way to do that.
Thank you. So, Stephen, please show that slide of the front cover of your book, and let's look at that topic.
Yeah, that's okay. That's right. No.
Well, as an author, I'm always happy to share the cover of my book. So there, well, should be up there. There it is. Is it up there?
Yes, looks good.
Okay, yeah, okay. So yeah, the book covers that topic of, it's written for the non-American with some tips and guidance on how to develop partnerships with the American business people, the American business culture. Think about that and to overcome some of the huge differences there are between doing business globally or internationally and doing business with American firms. You know, you talk about Filipino culture. I think Michael brought it up as well. You know, one of the reasons that partnerships fall apart.
Excuse me for just a second. Marianne, we can hear you speak. Please be on mute.
Okay, all right, bye.
Thank you. Okay.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. Sounded
So
important.
one of the reasons things go wrong with organizations when they try to partner across borders is simply that, look, the senior executives have so much in common. You know, if you're an American and you're dealing with somebody in Brazil or Turkey or Singapore, Japan, you have a lot in common. And many of these international executives have gone to university or postgraduate school in the United States. And they make great partnerships, but then it's down to the middle managers, who I call the glue between strategy and execution. The middle managers have not traveled outside their home countries, either as Americans or on the international side. And so this is where the conflicts happen. This is where things go astray, because they haven't been taught how to communicate with each other. They haven't been taught to understand each other's cultures, each other's differences. And, you know, one of the things my co-author Ollie always points out is, you know, the American business culture is all about time is money. So you jump right into meetings. You want to talk business right away. And, you know, as Michael said earlier, you know, in Japan, you got to spend time building that relationship at the beginning of a discussion and then talk about business. The same thing applies in Mexico and most of Latin America, a lot of Europe, certainly the Middle East. And you can rub people the wrong way if you just want to focus on time is money and jump into business. So that's what the book's all about.
Folks, we have 5 minutes or so remaining. Christian, I want to give you the microphone.
Thanks. So Michael said something very interesting about these mentorships, and this is shorthand, but these relationships being episodic. And this is something I have seen tied to what Stephen just explained about the American concept of time is money. The problem is often that the relationship is not as important as getting something done together. And as soon as that happens, by default, it will become episodic, because once it's done, it's done. I'm not necessarily as interested in the person and in, to Philip's point, their long-term development. What are they going to be like as a leader 10 years from now if they stay within the same organization? I'm more interested in, you're going on assignment, here's what you got to do, you're coming back, and now you're maybe working in a different department for me, so I don't really care anymore about what your future looks like, and I definitely don't care about your family anymore. So I wanted to tie the two together here.
Yeah, Ken Lloyd.
Just to hitchhike a bit further on some of Philip's points, when we talk about the importance of vision, for us to have vision, the value that we bring, and our competencies, that's for many of us an initial snapshot. And as we go through our careers and through life, we build on those. Our vision expands, it becomes broader, more profound, more, frankly, more relevant. And the same with our competencies. How are we going to develop them and in what areas? And at the same time, those are thoughts that we want to bring in as we manage the people that we work with. And I don't mean managing by controlling them. I know that I don't want to use a word that sounds like we're dominating them, but in collaborating with our employees so that we're helping them build and enhance their vision, build and enhance their competencies, build and enhance the idea of the kinds of values that they want to bring to the organization. So we should be doing that for ourselves, or else we're stagnant and we're going nowhere. And we should be doing it with our employees to help build them as well. And I've talked with Paul Falcone a lot about this and the importance of career development for today's workers and coaching and guidance. And those three principles, Philip, that you mentioned are very important to keep in mind for our own careers, as well as for building the strength and effectiveness of the people that we work with.
Thank you. Paul Falcone.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. And I think, again, Emiko, the work that you're doing, the work that Michael is doing is critical these days. But, and again, maybe my view of it is specific to the entertainment industry too much. But one of the challenges that we saw is that when people go abroad, they're no longer in the corporate office space. People forget them. And a lot of times people can come back after 2 years abroad and find out they're quick to be laid off, or they've lost their internal network. You have to make sure that when you send them abroad, you still keep that connection to whatever the parent corporation is, wherever they came from, because it's too easy to be out of sight, out of mind. And I just think it's something that needs awareness. It's something that can hurt candidates going through that process. They should not be disadvantaged by going overseas. They should be advantaged by the fact that they have more of a global perspective. So that's the one thing I would add.
Michael?
Sorry, I was on mute. A profound agreement on all my colleagues there. It's really, really amazing dialogue. Yeah, I mean, I'm a simple bloke that grew up in Westchester and somehow ended up in 9 countries and moved 35 times. And every time I move to a new place like Japan again, it's very humbling. You have to absolutely put your global mindset down and become a local and truly immerse yourself. Don't question things and accept and tolerate ambiguity. So my biggest learning is just be reticent, be open, be receptive to change. And it's been the most enriching but humbling experience of my life.
Emiko?
Yes, it's so precious that learning the things, and then it makes me rethinking. And of course, we are facing the people for the experts all over the world, and we can realize, that everybody is having having a hard time for the different culture, but also we have to work with Japanese, like a Japanese company, human resources, and also the government, and also the Japanese bank, and it's not work like for it. So we have to understand to, we have to work with Japanese people to Japanese way. And also we have to work with the global people at each country. We have to understand for their culture, and we want to really stay with their, how do you say, understand, not the way we wanted to try to do the way they wanted to do. Then we try to, I don't know how to say. Thank you. Anyway, yes.
Thank you. I think we should do this next chapter, a next edition soon. And I will send you all a copy of this program in the next day or so. And I welcome you all to join us again as an ensemble and go to another level and continue the conversation. Please use the contact information that you have to stay in touch. Thank you for being on Global TV Talk Show. I've learned a lot, and I thank you for letting me have you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Ed.
Ed. Thanks a
Bye,
lot,
everybody.
Ed. Really appreciate
Thanks,
it.
Ed. You're the
Thanks.
great convener.
Bye, everybody.
Yes.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye.
Nice seeing you all.
It's my
Stay in touch,
superpower.
connect.
It is your superpower.
Yeah, exactly.
Congratulations.
Thank
Really,
you.
everybody needs an anthropologist on staff, wherever they work, because I think about culture all the time. It's my job, wherever I am, to see where I can be similar, where I can fit in, where I don't fit in, how I can adjust to a culture, how I'll never adjust to a culture. I have stories to keep you up all night.
Marianne, I'll connect you with my daughter, Natalie, my older daughter, who's studying to be an anthropologist and who was on its show just last Friday.
Oh,
Right.
great.
Yeah.
Where is
now,
she studying?
Well, she's doing.
Fullerton College, and then a year from now, she'll probably be at UC Santa Barbara.
Oh, cool.
So what about the digs? Now, so Natalie's working on
That's right, the
digs.
digs.
So
Those are the archaeologists, not the anthropologists.
yeah, you see, I'm stuck on Raiders of the Lost Ark, and
Oh, Ed, grow
yeah,
up.
I can't.
My daughter is an anthropologist. She's at the University of North Carolina as a professor.
Is she okay?
Excellent.
Where I have
Yes.
a step nephew in North Carolina that has had no power or water because
No,
of
no,
all the
she's
flooding
good.
there.
She's in good. She's in Durham, so they didn't have
Okay,
any.
that's the
there.
other side. Yeah, he's in Nashville.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. They had problems over the other side.
A
of the
lot.
state. Yeah.
Yeah,
Where are you located, Marianne?
I'm in San Francisco
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's what you said. Yeah, one of my
for now.
favorites.
It's an interesting place to be. Let's just put it that way. It has its challenges.
Well, everybody does. Everybody,
Yes,
everywhere.
that's true.
Good and bad everywhere. That's all.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay, folks. Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.
Hey, thanks a
Everybody.
lot, everybody.
See you
I
next
love
time.
it.
Thank you.
Okay,
Bye.
Okay, bye.
Thank you.